If you're like us, you hope to do something interesting, exciting, and adventurous before your time runs out.
And we're going for it. In just 90 days, we're moving into our RV to explore America for as long as we can.
What will we do with our house and other stuff?
We'll tell you how we made our decision in this episode of Roaming with Rosie. Hey Roamers, I'm Jamie.
I'm Linda.
And this is Roaming with Rosie, and we've chosen to collect memories instead of things.
And you heard it right, in just 90 days, we're moving into the RV.
In this video, we're going to go over the questions we asked ourselves, whether we should keep our house, rent it out, or sell it to be able to finance our adventure.
And let us qualify that we're not experts in real estate, finance, or taxes. We're only going to share with you the questions that we asked ourselves and others to try to help us make the best decision. My entire career, I've had the privilege of leading a team of volunteers, about 50 of them at any given time, and most of the time they're seniors. And every single one of them, without fail, has given me the same piece of advice. If you have a dream and there's something that you really want to do in your life, don't wait. Figure out a way to live it some way, somehow, as soon as you can. So we had planned to sell our home to hit the road, but when the pandemic hit, we watched so many full-timers lose their reservations.
You know how to take the reservation, you just don't know how to hold the reservation.
Seinfeld. Anyway, they'd been shut out of national parks, state parks, RV parks. In fact, there were entire states that said if you weren't a resident of that state, you could not do anything but drive through.
And we watch YouTube RVers too, and one thing that we noticed is a lot of the RVers that we watched were starting to either purchase property or buy homes again to be able to have a home base.
So that kind of made us realize that there is no one way to get into RV living.
Now this opens a door for a lot of us who find the RV life appealing, but also are worried about giving up everything that we've worked for this lifestyle.
So it's a really huge decision, and it's not one you can backpedal from easily. So here's some of the questions that we asked ourselves.
Will our home continue to appreciate over the long term without major renovations?
Do we have equity, meaning how much do we owe versus how much it's actually worth?
And is our monthly payment a substantial portion of our monthly expenses?
And could we refinance to lower that monthly payment?
Now we just refied our house with an interest rate that's half of what it was before.
But an option could be to take out just enough when you refinance to cover a year's worth of expenses on the road.
And of course, could we do this all without selling our house?
Once I leave my career, the concern is that we wouldn't qualify for as low of a rate as we got when we just refinance while I'm still at work. So that's something to be really cautious about.
Right, and that refi took us literally about 4 months because banks have changed the guidelines and of how they're doing loans. They don't want to get back into the situation with the housing crisis back in 05 and 06.
Yeah. Another thing we considered is this: if we sold our home and we invested the money to make it work for us, would we be able to move back into the housing market and buy again 10 years from now?
So now we wondered, what are some of the reasons that we should hold on to the home?
Yeah, we've already downsized. We've talked about that in other videos. We went from 4,000 square feet down to 1,600 square feet to this home that we thought would be our retirement home.
Yeah, and one thing to consider is we don't even know if we're going to like full-time RV life. We don't even know if we're going to like being together all day, all long together, full-time in an RV together. We've never done that because we both had careers, and Linda went to work and I did my thing, so we don't know. We've never spent day after day after day together, and that's been through our entire marriage, so that's going to be a big test.
Yeah, and I won't be able to go shopping as a break. So.
The option that we're considering is making our home a rental property.
Yeah, the location and the favorable rents in the area are good, and there's really a pretty big housing shortage here.
Right, and this home is a smaller home. It's only 1,600 square feet with a small backyard, so there's not a lot of maintenance. And the other thing that's really cool is we have some cool amenities like We have swimming pools, we have tennis courts, we have basketball courts, and we also have
Fishing.
fishing. Yeah.
Having all those amenities in the neighborhood and not on this property to have to maintain it is really good for possibly making this a seasonal rental or even just a vacation rental.
Right, and this could be lucrative because there's a lot of properties here that are owned by snowbirds, and they're usually here between the months of October through April.
Yeah, and Major League Baseball has their spring training here. We're actually located near several of the stadiums. So we found a company called the Snowbird Company, how appropriate, and they're a property management company that handles seasonal rentals in our area.
Right, and we can even gain some income from renting the house out, and then here's some of the reasons we're kind of leaning towards this.
So we really enjoy this home when they're not playing beer pong across the lake. But we really do enjoy it, and we see ourselves retiring to this house.
Right, and we could keep a lot of our furniture if we rented it out like that, and then that way we wouldn't have to put all that furniture in storage.
Right.
Now, one thing you're going to have to do if you turn it into a rental is you're going to have to talk to your insurance company because the risk is going to change because it's no longer owner-occupied. It's become a rental now. And the other thing you want to do is check city codes, and also you want to check with your HOA.
Yeah, that's your homeowners association for those of you who are fortunate enough to not have to have one. So some other things that we wanted to think about were we think that by having the house as a rental, we actually wouldn't worry as much about leaving the house unattended. There's a lot to think about if we're going to do this because we wouldn't be able to manage it ourselves, especially if we're out on the road.
No, and one thing we're going to have is a mail forwarding service.
And we'd still have to pay our mortgage even if we didn't have a renter at the time.
Yeah, and another thing to think about is what if the tenants do damage to the home, or if they do damage to the property that's inside the home, if you're making it a seasonal rental, or if they're causing problems with the HOA, which is generating fines.
And we'd have to hire a property management company, and we'd have to rely on them for any repairs that had to be done, which would mean you can't do the repairs yourself.
Right, so we'd have to rely on somebody else doing the repairs and whether they do a good job or not, and also subject to whatever they charge.
Of course, many of the YouTubers that we watch have sold everything so that they can live a truly nomadic life.
Right, and many of them have spent well over $100,000 in RVs and tow vehicles.
Yeah, there's a ton of reasons to do it that way, and we considered that.
Right.
Could be really super fun, but we decided to start with an RV at a fraction of that cost.
Right.
These are the reasons that would make us sell the house.
If, say, your property taxes or your HOA dues are just way too high.
Yeah, or if the home values stop appreciating.
Keeping the home and maintaining it from long distance just becomes too stressful. I mean, what would happen if one of our sprinklers over here was shooting up in the sky? Who's going to tell us that?
Yeah. So we would have to have a plan, and we would have to hire somebody to do what you used to do yourself.
Right.
That would be pretty hard.
Right. And that's hard for me because I'm so used to doing everything, and I'm real meticulous about the way things are done. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we keep the house and we go out on the road, then those are the things that we would have to worry about. And if they become too overwhelming, that would be a reason to sell.
Right. Not having a home base to run back to would challenge us to push through those hard times that we would go through in our RV life. Now, obviously, our age is a big factor in making this decision, and we also know that there are a lot of older RVers out there who have sold it all to have this RV life.
But we actually know many more who are doing this life while keeping their home.
Now, if we were 10 to 15 years away from full retirement instead of where we are, we'd probably make a different decision.
Yeah, especially if we were still suffering from all the financial crises that have occurred in the last 2 decades.
And we'd probably still choose to sell if
the monthly mortgage was high and we didn't have any equity, it really wouldn't make much sense to try to keep our home.
If our monthly mortgage payment was high and we were unable to save money for retirement.
Yeah, if we were in a situation where we had to choose property over quality of life, it would be a no-brainer and we would not choose the property. So many jobs now are fluid, they're mobile, they're gig work, so all of the things that we grew up with have completely changed.
RV living is a low-cost way to live, and there's a lot of people who can work from anywhere, and they can save a lot of money and invest. And the younger generation today doesn't look at home ownership the same way that we did, And we get that. In fact, a lot of them don't even have to own a vehicle any longer.
Oh my God, we're so old. Things have changed so much back
Right.
in our days. And because of the pandemic, there's so many people that'll never report to work at a location again.
And there's a lot of high-paying careers now that are location independent.
Yeah.
Now, asking ourselves all these questions and considering the answers carefully, we think we've made a firm decision.
Yeah, except for a lot of freaky things have happened this year.
Yeah, like when we went to school in the 60s, they taught us how to worry about nuclear disasters and earthquakes and air attacks.
But no one ever told us how do you survive a planetary pandemic. Some full-time YouTubers that we met up with in Quartzsite this year, Mike and Theresa from Meant to Be RVing, they planned their RV life for 5 years before they hit the road.
Right, in the last 2 years of that, they actually moved their fifth wheel into their backyard and spent 2 years in there just to make sure that they liked it, and that would also give them the best start.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that that is really a comfort place for me if we could do that, because I'm not a daring person. I'm a safe approach person to things.
Right, and unfortunately for us, being that our backyard is 40 feet long,
We know
25 feet deep,
Yeah.
and there's a lake in the back, we can't do that because our RV alone is
Yeah.
40 feet long. So
And that's how we know how wide our property is.
Yeah.
Because it's exactly as wide as the coach.
yeah, so that's not a possibility for us.
But what they did actually gave us the idea that we could do a version of that by just saying, look, we're just going to hit the road for 1 year and see how that goes before we make any major decisions.
Right, so we just have to fund 1 full year.
Yeah, there's no rules to full-time RV life. It's not a game for sure.
No, not at all.
So keeping our home base for at least the first full year gives us time to see how we handle RV living.
Yeah, and who knows if we might like it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or even 20 years from now.
Oh my God, we'll be 80.
Right.
I can't even imagine that. We'll have to see how we like traveling for the first year before we can even imagine longer.
Right.
Yeah, that's 20 years from now. It just seems like way too much to predict.
Yeah, and after 1 year, if this house is still where we want to spend our later years, when we're old.
Then we might try to figure out a way to keep it.
Yeah, and there's also a good chance while we're on the road, we may find someplace that we like better than where our current house is.
Yeah, kind of if you've followed us at all, then you know that both of us have seen ourselves living just about every place we've ever visited, so
Right.
we might adapt to it just fine. But just in case.
Right.
The advice we're giving ourselves is to remember to think beyond this year. Being impulsive about moving into an RV could be really costly, especially at our age.
And we've been through a lot of really tough times financially and then also with other obligations.
Yeah, taking care of family members and stuff
Right.
was twofold. It makes you realize how important it is to be there when your family needs you, but also to what we said at the beginning of this, which is how fast time goes and you don't have time to wait. We hope these questions that we asked ourselves are helpful to you as you decide what you want your RV life to look like.
And we're continuing to purge stuff, so that'll make future decisions easier.
Yeah, so there's a great website I found called DOITYOURSELFRV, and on there they had an article, and I'll put it down in the web down below. Okay.
In the description, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
In the description. But it's called How to Get Rid of Stuff and Hit the Road Full Time. And it was really helpful with how to approach things like family heirlooms and like historical documents. And I am now the family matriarch. I can't believe that because I'm only 60. But
Right.
I have all that stuff. So it gives you ideas as to how to purge some of that out of your life.
That would be a good reason for us to drive that stuff to your brother Dave's in Florida.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Hey, Dave, I hope you have room in your garage.
So thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
And ring that bell so you'll be notified when we upload a new video.
And make sure and leave a comment so you can be part of that conversation.
Until next time.
See ya.